All right. So we'll go ahead and get started, and hopefully Jeff can hear us and see us. And all right. So thanks to the YMCA at City Market, Bicycle Garage Indy, Bike Indianapolis, Commuter Connect, and SEBA for their support of these community outreach events. We do these lunch and learns each month on the second Thursday of the month from 12 to noon. And a couple of reminders, the YMCA at City Market is currently closed, but the YMCA Athenaeum and the Ursay Family YMCA downtown are open, plus all the other Central Indiana Ys are open. And Bicycle Garage Indy at City Market, our downtown location, is open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 to 4 by appointment only. And our north and south stores are open as well. Our north store is open from Tuesday through Sunday, and south store is open Tuesday through Saturday. The topic today is focusing on beginning and returning bicyclists and talking about fitting, bicycle fitting, and injury prevention and stretching. And we have a couple of upcoming, lunch and learns. Bike Commuting 101, Biking for Transportation, is next month on March 11th. And April 8th is a panel of folks from different bike groups talking about the different bicycling opportunities in the community. And today's speakers are Frank Radaker. He is Bicycle Garage Indy's fitting specialist, and he's going to speak on proper bike fitting and injury prevention, including getting what you can't see everything, what's causing all the aches and pains. BGI has been at, or Frank has been at BGI, Bicycle Garage Indy, since 1996, which is a long time.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so I guess 25 years this year. Pretty wild. Woods-Sutherlin is the Associate Wellness Director of the Downtown YMCAs, and he'll identify some key stretches to do before and after riding to help the body recover. And he has been here at the Y since 2016. And among his duties as Associate Wellness Director, he's responsible for the personal training programs at all of the Downtown Ys. So welcome to both of you. And as we're going through this, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and do a couple of polls. So first poll will be, how did you learn about the events? And so the people who are here, go ahead and check all that apply. And I'm going to go ahead and end the polling. And so family and friend and meetup are the two top results. And then I'm going to do the next one. What are your bicycling interests? So we've got bicycling for transportation, for fitness, for competition, for touring, bicycling on roads, bicycling on paved paths, and check all that apply on natural surface, mountain biking, bicycling with family and friends, bike packing, and other. So we've got fitness is the top one, and then bicycling on paved paths as follows, and everything else has a couple of people. All right. And then so bicycling for fitness was the number one. And then lunch and learn topics. What future lunch and learn topics are you likely to attend? And I should have made this multiple choice And it looks like you can only pick one, so pick your most favorite. These are upcoming topics that we're going to be having. So biking for transportation is next month. Different bike groups the following month. We're going to do a program on family biking, how to live a car light life. Looks like bicycle security and basic maintenance are the top one for people. All right. And then riding in the cold and dark. That's always a good one. All right. And then the last one, this is very specific for this thing, is what is your top discomfort area when bicycling? Is it handlebar contact area, pedal contact area, or saddle seat contact area, or other? And there it goes. So this one, you only get one choice. All right, so this one I will share so Frank can see the results. So 2/3 of the people are saddle and seat, and 1/3 are handlebar, and nobody said anything about pedals or other. So that gives you some ideas.
That pretty much matches the numbers that I have collected through the years in a questionnaire before I do the fittings. Saddle and hands, those are the two primary comfort issues for most people because the feet are moving, so the pressure is on and off, whereas on the hands and the saddle area, it's pretty well constant. Makes sense.
Okay, so we will go ahead. I will turn this over to Frank. He's going to start the discussion, and then Taj will follow. Yeah, I'll mute myself at this point.
Key concept for you is that cycling is a repetitive activity. Crunch numbers found out that the average recreational cyclist, they're putting in 5,000 pedal strokes per leg per hour when they ride. So any small misalignment in the body caused by misadjustment of the bike can generally steer you toward an overuse injury. The insidiousness of overuse injuries is that it takes a long time before you notice it, which means it starts to hurt. And many times it can take just as long to heal, to get over the injury after the bike is adjusted properly to take care of it. Key thing about bike fitting in general, just make sure the bike is adjusted to, is to allow the body to assume its natural alignment on the bicycle. We don't want the bicycle forcing your body into an unnatural position, basically. I use the catchphrase with fittings is that if you walk bow-legged, you're going to ride the bike bow-legged. But a lot of people will force their knees into this unnatural position, and then a few months later, maybe a few weeks later, oh, my knees hurt a whole bunch. Why is that? Well, because you've been holding them in a very unnatural position. If you walk pigeon-toed, or then you're probably going to ride the bike. Well, you should ride the bike pigeon-toed in a sense. And so that's the key thing about as far as adjusting the bike is to get it to where it allows your body to assume its natural position. The tricky part there is that the vast majority of people are asymmetrical. The bicycle itself is quite symmetrical, and so you have to adjust the bike in such a way to, in essence, kind of make it asymmetrical to match the person's body. Minor asymmetries can be adjusted in the bike fitting by adjusting the bicycle to the person that's sitting on it. Footnote, extreme asymmetries might need medical or physical therapy treatment before you really start a regular cycling schedule. So if you know, for example, you have a leg length discrepancy where one leg is ½ inch or an inch shorter than the other, orthopedist, podiatrist might need to be, should be referred to before you start cycling on a regular basis. There are a lot of adjustments on the bike. Since the saddle was the #1 issue there, we'll talk about saddle primarily. Most people think, oh, you're stuck with the saddle that comes with the bike. No, it's not welded to the bike, so you can change it. Saddle considerations in terms of choice and adjustment. Saddles come in a lot of different widths, lengths, designs, the amount of padding, distribution of the padding. Design, for example, the media frenzy many years ago about medical issues caused by cycling. The saddle companies responded by coming up with a lot of new saddle designs, which, while not really necessary for medical issues for most people, they did result in creating a whole lot of more saddles that were comfortable. Saddles that have a hole in the center, pressure in the middle. If you have a groove or something like that, saddle pressure in the center line of the body can be eliminated quite a bit. Saddle height. Saddle height that's too high, too low can cause significant stresses and pain in the knees. It also changes the workload distribution, where you're getting more work out of the quads or the hamstrings or the glutes. And ideally, we're going to try to balance that workload out as much as possible. The saddle back and forth, so whether it's more to the front of the bike or the back of the bike, can have an impact on that same thing. Workload distribution and just pain in the knees. Saddle's too low, for example. Imagine you walk around all morning in a kind of a squat position. I guarantee your knees are going to be hurting before lunchtime. If the saddle's too far forward, for example, it can generate the same thing. Saddle tilt. That's a major comfort issue for a lot of people. They get a lot of excess pressure from the front of the saddle and you get numbness. Or if the saddle's tilted down too much to eliminate the numbness, then your hands start to hurt because you're sliding forward like a playground slide. You're sliding forward, and the only way to keep that from stopping is to push back on the handlebars. So now you got a lot of pressure on your shoulders, elbows, hands. So then your fingers can go to sleep because your saddle is adjusted incorrectly. That's one of the insidious things about fitting, is every adjustment's interconnected with virtually every other adjustment on the bike. The reach from the saddle to the handlebars can have an impact too. Basically, once the saddle position is set, then the stem length. Again, it's not welded to the bike, so stems come in lengths from 40 to 140 millimeters. That's a massive range. And that impacts how far you're reaching from the saddle to the handlebars. Too close, if the handlebar stem is too short for you, that can put a lot of pressure on your hands or force you to slide improperly, slide backward in the saddle, which then that messes up your knees. The reach of the handlebars basically impacts the weight distribution on the bike. So if the stem is too short, the handlebars are too close to the saddle, that's going to put weight on the saddle off of the handlebars, but it also takes weight off of the pedals. Ideally, on most bikes, we want to get weight on the pedals because that's, I call it free speed. The pedal's getting pushed down by your body weight, not just muscle power. Aerodynamics, if you're talking on a road bike, is going to be impacted by the reach of the bars, but also how far below the saddle the handlebars are. Your ability to breathe is going to be impacted if the stem is too short, because that throws your back into a curve like this. Hello, get the camera angle right. Instead of having a nice straight back where you belly breathe at a bike and you want your back nice and straight. It's very much the same as, you know, the classic, your mom says, sit up straight, good posture is important when you're sitting in a chair. It's just as important or more important when you're sitting on a bicycle. The drop to the bar has an impact on that as well. Too excessive and it exceeds your flexibility. And so now you end up bouncing up and down on the saddle because the torso to upper leg angle, try that again, there you go. If you close that angle down too much, beyond your body's flexibility, the pedal's going to push your foot up. Hello. It's going to push your foot and your knee up. But if your body can't get the knee high enough because of your flexibility, that's going to throw your back into a curve and maybe make it bounce up and down on the saddle too. Essentially what we're looking for is that A-frame structure, if you will, between your hips and your hands. And on a road bike, for example, you're looking for a 90-degree angle between your back and your arms. So if the bar is too close, you end up kind of like this. The bar is too far, you go like that. Stable A-frame structure, kind of like that, is what we're looking for. On a hybrid upright handlebar, flat bar bike, it's a little bit less of an angle. So instead of a 90, it might be an 80-degree angle, but it's still kind of a stable A-frame structure. As far as setting your bike up at home, oops, hello. The easiest at-home method for setting the proper saddle height is to sit in the saddle centered, put one pedal at the bottom of the pedal stroke, and put your heel on the pedal. Because you're not pedaling with your heels, that's going to basically lock out your knee when the saddle height is the right height. When it's the right height, your knee will just barely be locked out, because when you slide your foot back and get the ball of your foot over the pedal, that's going to give you a knee angle similar to what your knee is, say, when you're running. You get that one foot on the ground, the other foot's going forward. That slight bend is what you're looking for when the pedal's down at the bottom. Getting the fore-aft position is a little trickier by yourself, so I would suggest clamp the saddle rails in the middle point of the straight section of the saddle rail, because then the idea is you're making sorry, the least error possible then. You know, you're making the smallest mistake. If you need it all the way forward, all the way back, and you've got it at the other end, then you've made the greatest mistake possible. The saddle tilt should feel like the saddle is level, parallel with the ground. You're not sliding forward because it's too nose down. You're not getting excess pressure in the front because it's too nose up. For most saddles, that means the front half of the saddle, because a lot of saddles have kind of a curve in it. The saddle front half should basically be parallel with the ground, is your best starting point. And then adjust for newer riders, get the grip section and the saddle pretty much level with each other, same distance from the ground. So you're not leaning excessively forward, and you're also not sitting upright, which on a road bike you don't want to do. And then the saddle to grip reach, be it the flat bar grip or a road bar brake lever. Get a stem that's long enough to create that A-frame, that stable A-frame structure I mentioned. If the stem's too low, you'll be tilted hands down. Stem's too high, then you'll be up, and all the body weight goes back to the saddle. But those are kind of the easiest ways to get a good starting point at home. And then just pay attention. I've explained what you're supposed to be feeling, and so that makes it a little easier to self-diagnose what's going on. If you're getting too much pressure on the saddle, you might need to lower the bar. If you're getting too much weight in your hands, you might need to raise the bar or bring the bar back. You're getting, last point, if you're getting knee pain, for example, in the front of your knees, it usually means the saddle's too far forward or too low. If you're getting pain in the back of your knees, it generally means the saddle's too high. In essence, you're hyperextending the knee at the bottom of the pedal stroke. And then we'll have questions later.
Frank, there was a question specifically about the saddle. Do you need to change the saddle with weight change?
Well, the basic approach I have on that is most people appreciate a certain minimal amount of padding, if you will, between the saddle shell and your pelvic bones. And that padding can be either on the body or it can be on the saddle. And everyone has a different standard as far as what feels comfortable. Most people find as they get more acclimated to the pressure points created by a bicycle saddle, which are unique in your life, unless you're a horseback rider, might be similar. And so as they get more experienced and they acclimate to the pressure points in the saddle, they tend to migrate toward a firmer saddle with slightly less padding. Newer riders generally appreciate more padding. It can't be taken too far though. You wouldn't get running shoes when you're a brand new runner with 3 inches of foam on the bottom. That's, you know, too much of a good thing. And bike saddles are kind of the same thing. Start off with a saddle that has the amount of padding that is comfortable to you. But keep in mind that the saddle that came on the bike is new to your backside. And there is going to be an acclimation time period regardless of the saddle you put on your bike. So the saddle that comes on your bike, give it a fair chance first before you go swapping out the saddle. Don't assume I need a lot more padding right from the get-go. The saddle on your bike might already have an adequate amount of padding. It takes, say, a dozen rides to really give your backside a chance to acclimate to whatever saddle you have on your bike. If it's going to work, you'll notice that it gets a little bit more comfortable each time you ride, and the after-ride discomfort gets less and less between each ride. If it's still uncomfortable after a dozen rides, Keep note of what the discomforts are in terms of what part of the saddle seems related to it. And then we can help you find a saddle that addresses those specific issues. But the more data points we have, the easier it is to suggest a saddle that might actually work well the second time through. I'll shut up because I know that was more than you asked for.
All right, did you want to cover the other, I think it was pedals and seat and hands. So.
Yeah, well, I touched on the others, but
Yeah.
as far as the feet go, a stiff sole shoe is what you want. Whether you're using, if you're not using the cycling shoes, I usually suggest a low top hiking shoe because they have very stiff soles. You don't want your foot wrapping around the pedal. It's like standing in the end of a 2x4 for an hour. I guarantee your feet are going to hurt. And so the stiffer the sole is on the shoe, the more support your feet are getting, so you're less likely to wrap around the pedal and cause pain in the bottom of your feet. You want to make sure to put the ball of your foot, and that's kind of tricky because everybody has a different definition of that, but you want your forefoot over the pedal. The way I like to describe it is the same part of your foot that you're putting your body weight on, you're climbing stairs, is the same part of your foot you want over the center of the pedal axle. For most people, that is not the first metatarsal head. That's the joint behind the big toe. The center is a little bit behind that. So if you find a landmark on your running shoe, the first lace is usually a good marker, or the strap or whatever, find a landmark that lines up with that first metatarsal head and put that landmark of the shoe even with the front edge of the pedal axle rather than the center. Because the center of the ball of your foot is usually 5 to 7 millimeters behind that, and the pedal axle is about a centimeter across. So that'll get you lined up pretty well. Your foot will memorize what that feels like over time, and you won't have to go searching for it each time. In the beginning, you want to use that landmark to kind of train your body. This is where the foot needs to be. As far as the hands go, cycling gloves, always good. I always tell people you want to keep if you happen to tumble, you want to keep the skin on your hand, not on the street. So wear cycling gloves and pay attention to the placement of the gel padding. Sometimes they put too much gel padding. It actually, on road bikes especially, kind of gets in the way of the brake lever. So you can, when you buy gloves, have your bike with you. So you put on the glove, grab your bar, grab your brake lever to make sure the padding's in the right location so it actually fits. Cycling gloves should be pretty much skin tight. You don't want them curling up, folding the fabric up under your hand when you're riding. That'll hurt. It's like having wrinkly socks on. It's not pleasant.
So we'll go ahead and turn it over to Taj. And Taj is going to talk about stretching and other things as well. Thanks.
All right, you guys, how are we doing? Hopefully pretty good. Frank, thank you so much for that. Very informative. I learned quite a bit myself. I just want to spend a little time talking to you guys, one, about the importance of stretching, understanding different types of stretching and why those different types of stretches are important, specifically for cycling. And also I wanted to talk briefly about injury prevention. I'm hoping that Frank could throw me a couple lobs on injury prevention. I could throw it down for you guys. So first and foremost, as with any kind of athletic activity or any kind of thing that's driven towards performance, when it comes to stretching, it's going to help improve your flexibility. That's the biggest thing. It's very important for cyclists because that's going to lead to improved performance and, more importantly, comfort while you're riding, which can also prevent joint soreness. Alluding to Frank's point, the biggest reason you want to be stretching and keeping your muscles warmed up and loosened up is for posture, so keeping your back straight and not curved while exercising and keeping your posture on point is super important. So I want to kind of break down the difference between static stretching and dynamic stretching for you guys, because a lot of folks don't quite understand what the two are. So a couple of examples of like a static stretch, a couple of upper body ones would be like a deltoid stretch where you cross over and you're pulling on the deltoid, the three heads of the deltoid, and you're stretching. that is a static stretch. And believe it or not, it's not a very good idea to do any kind of static stretching before physical activity. So if you're getting ready to go do a workout, if you're getting ready to go ride your bike, if you're getting ready to go for a run, you do not want to be doing static stretching. You want to save your static stretching for when you're done with that activity. Okay, and the reason for that is because when you first start exercising, your muscles are still cold, so they need to have some kind of movement to get them warmed up, and that's where dynamic stretching comes in. So dynamic stretching could be, especially for cyclists, torso rotations or torso twists, knee tucks, body weight squats are great for getting warmed up. Anything that you're doing that's going to allow you to rotate and twist at your lumbar, your lower back, and also engage in your lower extremity. Those are the best kind of dynamic movements you're going to want to do. Anytime you hear the term deep pocket squat, you're just getting down as low as you can. So deep pocket squats are great. Like I said, torso twists, reverse lunges, or split squats, even shoulder rolls, and over unders. So over under, just your arms are out as wide as you can go, keeping up as high as your shoulders, and just crossing over. That's a great dynamic warm up. So the reason why you want to do static stretching at the end is mainly to prevent injury. You've already, taxed your muscles, you've worked out, or you rode for however long you rode. It's generally a good idea to stretch some of those major muscle groups afterward. And some of the best places to start is stretching your glutes, stretching your hamstrings and your quads. Those are primary drivers, especially for cyclists. So I want to also kind of piggyback on something that Frank mentioned earlier, like when it comes to knee pain. And if you're having, knee pain and having a hard time keeping your heels in alignment with your knees, then that may be an indication that your glutes aren't strong enough, which also could mean that you didn't warm up well enough before you hopped on your bike. So essentially, our glutes are external hip rotators. And so for us to be able to turn our toes outward or inward and to plant our heels, that control starts with our glutes. And it sounds like it's pretty important for a cyclist, but a great stretch is that deep pocket squat, getting down as low as you can, trying to sink your elbows down in between your knees, and then coming back up and squeezing your glutes at the top of that squat. I found in personal training clients, it really helps a lot with being able to rotate and control where your toes are pointed and keeping your feet parallel and in line. So a few strategies I think would be ideal for cyclists after getting off the bike. Anything that's going to engage your hip flexors, your lower back, specifically in your lower extremity, your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings. So the line rotation or the figure four stretch, and a line rotation is just relying on your back. Both arms are out, and with your back as straight as you can keep it, you want to take one of your knees and bring it across your body and pull, and that's going to get your hip flexor, your gluteus medius, which is along the side of your glute, not on the back, and of course your lower back. So I mentioned earlier that deep pocket squat, and all that is, you guys, is just getting down as low to the ground as you can, okay, and letting those elbows sink in between your heels. If you have pain there, that's in your knees, like I said, that just probably means your glutes aren't strong enough. So it's good to be stretching out with the deep pocket squat. Also, as far as standing stretches go, one of the best things you can do is to stretch your hamstrings out. And you can do a standing hamstring stretch just by just going one leg over the other. I'll demo for you guys real quick. All that means is I'm taking one of my legs, going over the other one, and then going straight down. By doing that, I'm isolating one of my hamstrings, getting a really deep stretch. And you can hold it as long as you can. If you're having a hard time bending over, you can do another standing hamstring stretch by putting your foot up onto a table and letting your hips set back as far as you can. And as far as your stretches, the static stretches, you don't want to hold them for any more than 15 seconds for the most part. In most cases, somewhere between 8 to 15 seconds. Focus on your breathing and then relax and then do the stretch again. All right. Also, too, because when you're on your bike, you're kind of stuck in that position for an extended amount of time. And Frank even mentioned earlier that you want to make sure that your back is in line, right, and not curved. But one way to ensure that is to stretch your traps out and all the muscles along the posterior chain along your upper back. A really good, easy standing trap stretch is just to wrap one of your hands behind your body. Take one hand, wrap it around the arm, and then slowly, gently pull that arm away. And what's going to happen is you're going to feel a nice stretch along the trap and the rhomboid, which will lead to more range of motion and not being so tight up on the parts of your upper back. So does anyone have any questions about the differences between dynamic and static stretches, of different types of warm-ups to do before you hop on the bike, and what to do when you get off?
We've got a couple of questions about stretching. What are the best 5 stretches for triathletes? And is the use of a percussion massage helpful or just a fancy toy?
Actually, those are not just fancy toys. They are useful. It can get expensive, but if it's something you can afford to do, I would encourage you to use any additional type of techniques. Those thermoguns, they're great. I think it's always best to go to a professional and try to do it yourself. But yeah, they are very beneficial. But yeah, so I had top 4 stretches for you guys to do. The line rotation or the figure 4, the deep pocket, the trap stretch, and the standing or lying hamstring stretch. So those are my top 4, specifically for cyclists. So yeah.
When is the best time to use the massage? The percussion massage, I'm assuming.
Yeah, so similar to your static stretching, post-exercise after you're done. And honestly, you don't just want to be doing getting a Theragun massage just because. If you're tight in a particular area, or you feel like you don't have as much range of motion as you like, or as much mobility as you like in a particular area, that's when you want to incorporate some massaging. But for the most part, it's not going to be something you're going to need to do unless you have pain or recovering from an injury, something of that nature.
Can you demonstrate the 4 things again, the 4 stretches that you talked about?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that first one, I have to tilt my camera down, hang tight, is a figure 4 stretch. And there's a couple of variations of that one. You can do a figure 4, or you can do a lying rotation. Ooh. So that figure 4, hope you guys can see me pretty good. You'll be lying down on your back, and what's gonna happen is you're gonna get one leg up, and you're gonna pull inside right here. And right here, we are engaging the medius and the maximus and the hip flexor, okay? A variation of that same stretch is the rotation. So both hands are gonna go out, one leg's gonna be out straight. You're gonna take one of your knees, you're gonna bring it across your body while trying to keep both of your rear delts and your back down. Turn here, and if you have to, take a hand and pull back. But make sure you keep your shoulder blades and your back on the ground. This is really great for your medius and your hip flexor. Another one that's great for your hip flexor will be just a standard kneeling hip flexor stretch. You'll take a knee and you'll lean as far forward as you can on that knee. So not like a lunge, and just go right there. Great for your core and great for your hip flexor. My next one was the, hang tight, the deep pocket squat. And so anytime you hear the term deep pocket, this means you're getting as low as you can. Let those elbows sit inside your knees and try to hold that squat. Like I mentioned earlier, if you get down here and have a hard time keeping your feet parallel, that might just mean your glutes aren't strong enough. So what you have to do is plant the heels, point the toes out just to compensate. But by doing parallel squats, doing dumbbell squats and leg presses, you can improve your glute strength. So that was that one. The next one's a standing or lying hamstring stretch. So the lying hamstring stretch will be right here. Also great for the hip flexor. You lie on your back, bring one of your legs straight up, and get your hand on the other side of your knee, right above your calf, and pull back. This is great for the hamstring and the glute. All right. And then my last one was took this up for you guys, that trap stretch. And it's easier to show you guys if I turn around. So you'll be right here, one hand's behind your back, and you're gonna gently pull away. You definitely don't want to jerk into this one, and you want to get both sides. Just like that. I hope that answers your question. You guys making me work today. While I got you guys here, I'm gonna go ahead and demonstrate a couple of dynamic movements that I think will be good for you too. So knee tucks or knee hugs. And again, these are all movements that you're gonna wanna do for maybe, 20 seconds. I wouldn't necessarily count the reps. You just wanna get yourself moving. So the knee tucks are standing. You'll be right here and you can alternate. So you go here, bring that knee up, tuck, release, and right. That's the one. The next one would be body weight squats. So instead of holding that squat position, you're just dropping down, getting below parallel, and coming back up. And again, 20 to 30 seconds. Torso rotation. This one's a big one, okay? You want to rotate, turn the torso, and go side to side. Super important to protect that lumbar, all right? Protect the erectors. Reverse lunges and or split squats. So a reverse lunge, generally, you're taking a pretty nice size step going back. With a split squat, we're not splitting quite as much. So on the reverse lunge, one leg's gonna go back, and your focus is gonna be to keep this knee behind the toe and go straight down and come back up, okay? A split squat, your split's not gonna be quite as big. You'll bring this foot a little further inward, and you're gonna feel a little bit more glute activation than quad, but they're both great dynamic warm-ups, all right? And the last one I'd encourage you guys to do would be a shoulder roll or a variation of the shoulder roll. Just going like this, nice and slow. Rolling the shoulders back and forward. Quick tip, if you're working out and wanting to do shrugs or work your traps, never do shoulder rolls while you have weight, all right? Always go straight up and down. You don't want to roll while you're adding resistance. Another shoulder roll variation would be to come here, go goalposts, take your fingers, get them on the ball of your shoulder, and roll the shoulders forward and back. And again, 20 and 30 seconds of each of these before you hop on your bike. You'll be in pretty good shape. Oh. And that is all I've got for you guys, unless you got any more questions.
I don't see any other questions. So I think we'll go ahead and end unless anybody's got specific questions, type them in or unmute yourself and ask them. We'll wait a few seconds. Just to let you know, Bicycle Garage Indy has a bunch of online things that are going on. On Monday nights, we have Spotlight on Bicycling, where we highlight a bicycle organization, have them come in and talk about what they're doing and how you can get involved and support them. On Tuesday mornings, we have a cycling chat. And then next week, we have the science of HIIT, high intensity interval training, and sprint intensity cardio with Phil Campbell. We've got over 80 people who have signed up for that, which is really good. It'll be in a webinar format and really exciting. Usually we have him in person, but this time we're having him online. So we've got a lot of people who are very interested in that. There's still room to join in there. So please go to BGI's website and sign up. All of those are free. You just have to register and they're all on Zoom. So you'd be given a link prior to that. And I think that's all I've got. Frank, do you have anything else?
The only note I had in there is one of the big things that affects comfort is never lock your elbows when you ride the bike. Sounds easy to remember, but it's very difficult for most people to do. Just next time you're out riding yourself, watch the other people riding around you, and I'll bet you a nickel that 80% of them at least are riding with their elbows locked straight. We don't run with our knees locked straight, and riding your bike with your elbows locked straight, just as bad, because that turns off those core muscles, sends the weight back to your saddle. And when you hit a bump, it just pile drives the impact through your hands, up in your shoulders, elbows. It's borderline dangerous, but it's also extremely uncomfortable. Lots of good things happen automatically when you remember to keep your shoulders and elbows relaxed when you ride your bike. And that's regardless of the style of bike. That's it for me. Connie, you are muted, Connie.
All right, we have another question. Stretches you can do while on the bike riding.
Well, the only stretches I think you could do while on the bike would be upper body stretches. I may have to have Frank kind of chime in on this one, but if you're asking me, I'd say you could do lower back stretches, just a torso twist and hold. You can stretch your delts. You can get all three heads by crossing your body. You can do a tricep stretch by going above your heads and pulling back on the elbow. That's honestly about all I've got for you. Frank?
I find the one thing from lots of experience toward the end of really long rides, calf muscles being one of the smaller groups tend to fatigue and tighten up a little worse than some of the others. If you have cleated shoes, in other words, your feet aren't going to slide off the pedals, stretch I personally do on a regular basis is I will stand on one side and I'll just let that heel drop as far as the leg will let the heel go, and just, not pedaling, and just coast along for a little bit with it. It's a static stretch, and then do the other side as well. That helps to loosen up the calf muscles a whole bunch after you've been on the bike for several hours. But cleated shoes only, otherwise your foot's going to slide off the pedal backwards.
Yeah, I think a lot of the stretches that Taj demonstrated, when you stop at a rest stop and you're feeling like some of your muscles are getting a little sore, you can do some of the static stretches just to get them so they're stretched out a little bit. But that's all I've got. I've done that on very long rides. When you get to nearing the end, just making sure that you're stretching. I think that's it. Anybody else have any questions? Thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully you can join us next month when we talk about bicycling for transportation. So take care and have a great week.
Thank you.
Thanks.